Coming up next on KPBS Evening Edition, arrests of illegal border crossers are way down, but will it change the debate on illegal immigration?
And the mortgage meltdown put thousands of construction workers out of a job. Could biotech put them back to work? KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dwayne Brown.
And I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Joanne Farian.
San Diego State's men's athletic department made it official today, announcing a switch to the Big East Conference. The change could net the athletic department a lot more money than what it's been getting from the Mountain West. It also means the Aztecs could have a shot at a better bowl game. The team just made it into the New Orleans Bowl.
We're very, very excited to be joining the Big East. We think it's an opportunity for our football team to compete at the absolute highest level. And it's also an opportunity for us to be involved with some of the top universities in the country. And so all in all, it's this tremendous, tremendous opportunity for us. We're thrilled.
The change takes effect in 2013. Only the football team is going to the Big East. Other Aztec teams will have to find homes in new leagues.
Scripps Health and Sharp Memorial have settled civil lawsuits with the district attorney's office for improperly handling medical waste at their own sites and at a city landfill. During inspections, county officials found violations by Scripps and Sharp, including unlawful disposal of blood and tissue and failing to separate medical waste properly. The judgment calls for Scripps to pay $273,000 and Sharp to pay $103,000 in civil penalties.
A group of supporters are asking Governor Jerry Brown to save 70 state parks slated for closure. 2 of those parks are in San Diego County. KPBS environment reporter Ed Joyce joins us from the News Center. Ed, where are these 2 parks located in San Diego County, and who are these supporters?
The two state parks in San Diego County are the Palomar Mountain State Park and the San Pasqual Battlefield State Historic Park. And the people that are supporting or urging Governor Brown to keep all of these parks open, including the 2 in San Diego County, is Environment California. They say more than 85 million people visit state parks every year, spending more than $4 billion. And that $4 billion translates into $300 million in sales tax revenue, and they say closing the state parks only saves $22 million a year, so they say closing the parks just doesn't add up.
And I guess this all has to do with the state's lack of revenue.
Exactly. The state budget problems continue to mean cuts all across the board, including state parks, and including budget cutbacks for all state parks, including Torrey Pines State Beach Park and other parks that remain open that are not on the closure list. Torrey Pines State Beach Park officials have told me that those cutbacks have meant less maintenance for trails, staffing issues, and other problems in maintaining the trails and bathrooms, things like that, maintenance issues at the state parks, even the ones that stay open.
And do we have any indication of when a decision might be made by the governor?
Well, I'm not sure when the governor might make any decisions along these lines, as he has in the past with groups urging him to make changes to the budget cutbacks, of the deficits, the programs, the plans. He's generally averred to not rescinding those plans, and these parks are scheduled to be closed fully by July 2012.
KPBS environment reporter Ed Joyce.
Coming to a liquor store near you, locally grown cilantro and pomegranates. From our Fronteras desk, Jill Rapplagul tells us about a program in Chula Vista that seeks to improve the health of local residents by putting fresh produce in people's paths.
Ruby Vanegas knows what it's like to live far from a grocery store with no easy way to get there.
I had to walk, I had to carry my bags because I don't have a car.
Her solution was usually to hit the nearest liquor store and hope they had something she could turn into dinner for her family.
And what did they sell there? Fritos, all the food we call junk food, unfortunately. And we didn't have any other choice. And it's like, if I want to eat or give something to my kids, well, at least it's something.
But now, through a partnership between public health officials and Chula Vista school and city leaders, some of those stores are moving their junk food aisles to make room for apples, pomegranates, potatoes, and cilantro. And the produce is coming directly from local farmers. It's part of a larger effort to reduce obesity, diabetes, and other health problems in South San Diego County. 3 out of 5 adults here are obese or overweight, and 1/3 of all children, according to county officials.
And we think that's partly because of the lack of healthy choices, and that's what this program is about.
Proponents of the program hope it will be a model for other communities, seeking creative ways to make healthy food available to all residents.
That was Jill Replogle reporting. Four Corner stores in Chula Vista are participating in the Cilantro to Stores program. People who qualify for the CalFresh subsidized food program can use their monthly stipend to purchase the produce.
A 5,000 square foot mural of some of San Diego's historical attractions and people is now on display near Old Town. The idea was to remove blight from the area and promote the neighborhood's positive characteristics.
This is what you'll see on a walk or drive through one of the main gateways into San Diego Old Town, considered the birthplace of California. It's where the first Spanish mission was established in 1769. It's now an historic state park.
Somebody told me this has done so much to brighten this neighborhood, you know, and so that's what we're trying to do, is not only beautify this neighborhood, but all neighborhoods in town. And you'll see our young people working in every part of town, you know, clearing streams, helping with the parks, or, you know, just beautifying.
The mural artist Sal Barajas is probably best known for his original work here at Chicano Park. These are some of the historical figures from the Mexican Revolution.
For the Gateway mural, his son says Barajas teamed up with young people from the Urban Core Conservation Group to complete the mural. It took about 5 months.
The first step was we laid out a grid, and then we passed the images through a drawing onto the grid, and then we proceeded to paint. And as soon as the painting was done, we went ahead and put a fresh coat of varnish to make sure that the graffiti was reduced to a minimum. And actually the great part about it is that the Urban Core of San Diego specializes in graffiti removal, so this project seemed to work perfectly.
The Gateway mural is located on the underpass of Interstate 5 at the corner of Rosecrans and Jefferson Streets. The city redevelopment project cost about $126,000 to complete. A new report says arrests at the U.S. border with Mexico are at their lowest level in decades. Amitha is talking about it with her guests over at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
Illegal immigration across the U.S.-Mexico border has dropped to historically low levels. David Keyes from UCSD's Center for Comparative Immigration Studies joins us to talk about the decline in border apprehensions and what it means for the immigration debate. David Keyes, welcome. In 2011, Border Patrol arrested 327,000 people crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Compare that to the year 2000 when 1.6 million people were arrested. Why the dramatic decline in arrests?
Well, clearly the number has been going down over the years, as you've said. And our research at the Center for Comparative Immigration Studies has shown that the economic impact on people's migration decisions is really paramount. So people who are in Mexico and thinking about the possibility of crossing over to the U.S. really are able to talk to people, their family members, their friends who are here in the U.S., in order to make a decision about whether to come. And for many people, the decision to come just doesn't make sense right now in a period where they'd have to pay a lot to cross over to the U.S., largely to people smugglers, and there's no guarantee that they'd be able to find a job. So with that in mind, we have seen through our research, both here in the U.S. as well as in Mexico, that people are largely foregoing the decision to cross into the U.S. and waiting till the economic conditions really improve.
How does this decline in arrests at the border affect the U.S. immigration debate, which appears to have fallen by the wayside?
Well, I think there are two things. I think in terms of the politicians, especially Republicans, who want to talk about it as an issue, I don't think it's going to go away, because I think it makes sense for them, especially during the Republican primary right now, to really mobilize their base. It's an issue that resonates with people in the Republican base. And so in some ways the facts of the argument are irrelevant to them making their argument. The other way that it plays into this is in terms of the number of people who are here in the U.S. Even though apprehensions have gone down, we see that there are increasing numbers of people in the U.S., increasing numbers of immigrants. And with those people here, it's forcing the issue into the forefront across the country in communities that hadn't had immigrants until recently. And it's forcing communities to reckon with how they're going to deal with immigrants who live amongst them and what types of policies will set into place. So in some ways, I think it'll be most important for the Republican primaries and perhaps at local level also in terms of the 2012 election.
So regarding those people, there are 11 million undocumented workers in the United States. Many of them have set down real roots in this country and are in no hurry to return to the country that they came from. What's the feeling now about the perception of these people by politicians and just the general population?
Well, first of all, I would say, just to be clear in terms of those people, you're right that many, if not most of them, are choosing not to go back. And that's, of course, because they have roots here. They've been here for a number of years. They have family here. And also the economic situation in Mexico is no better than it is here in the U.S. I think the fact that there are so many immigrants now is forcing it into a more public place in terms of people's discussions about immigration. But it's interesting in this period, particularly in the elections right now, where economics have been, the economy has really been the main issue, that discussions of immigration have been important but have never risen to the level of importance that the general economic questions have been. So I think it could become more of an issue, but at this point I would say it's not as big as some of the other questions that have come up.
But yet, under President Obama, you had Latinos vote in droves for him back in 2008. Yet on his watch, we've had a record number of deportations. How is that going to play a role?
Well, I think the main issue there will be the degree to which President Obama is able to mobilize Latino voters. As you said, in the 2008 election, they were a huge part of the makeup of the voters who supported him and led him to victory. And I think the question is not whether Latino voters are going to go and vote for Republicans, because I think it's pretty clear that they won't, given the Republican stance on immigration. But I think the question is the degree to which people will be, Latino voters in particular, will be mobilized and energetic to support Obama, and may or may not choose to even come out on the day of the election.
David Kais, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thanks for having me.
San Diego has become a biotech hub, and leaders of other Southwest cities are hoping biotech can help them make an economic comeback. The story just ahead from our Fronteras desk. And tonight we remember the 70th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor by talking with an 89-year-old survivor. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, a Supreme Court case examines who owns Montana's largest rivers, the state or a power company. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
The American people have named PBS
the most trusted source of news
and public affairs
for the 8th year
in a row.
Trust.
The American people have spoken.
Thank you.
Do you dare move from an ordinary to an extraordinary life?
Don't allow anybody else's opinions. Don't allow what it says on the internet. Don't allow the research. Don't allow what anybody out there tells you is possible or not possible.
Join Dr. Wayne Dyer for Wishes Fulfilled, a joyful journey to manifesting your deepest desires while living from your highest self.
Saturday at 7 on KPBS. KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
The construction industry has shed about 700,000 jobs along the southwest border since the market collapsed 3 years ago, and the industry may not quite recover from the boom again.
That means cities are on the hunt for the next big employment opportunity, and many here are putting their hopes on biotechnology.
But could biotech really put all those welders and real estate agents back to work?
From the Fronteras desk, Jill Rupp-Local seeks answers to that question.
Here at the International Genomics Consortium in Phoenix, Arizona, lab workers are unpacking samples sent from cancer centers around the country.
This is a tissue frozen inside of OCT.
In another part of the lab, workers will extract DNA and RNA from the tissues so that scientists can map out the genomes of cancer cells. Phoenix might be more synonymous with golf courses and winter homes than with biotechnology, but the city hopes to eventually become a new biomedical hub. The city recently hosted a tour of the Phoenix Biomedical Campus for members of the National League of Cities.
Arizona really needed to change its economy. Our economy had been so focused on the boom and bust of construction and growth. We wanted to diversify to higher paying jobs and jobs that would last and continue to grow and build.
The biomedical campus has been under development by the city of Phoenix since 2004. It now houses several research firms, plus a med school and a pharmacy school. There are more buildings under construction, and the city is actively recruiting new tenants. Biotech is one of the few industries to have survived the economic downturn relatively well. During the first year of the recession, while other private sectors were shedding employees daily, the industry actually added jobs. How's that?
There are so many questions out there to be asked, and almost every one of those questions has an opportunity in biotechnology.
You've probably noticed that there still isn't a cure for cancer. And how will the nation meet the rising healthcare needs of baby boomers? The SDSU College of Sciences graduates several hundred students each year, many of whom find jobs with private biotech companies in San Diego. This is already one of the country's major biotech hubs, and a model for cities that want to be, like Phoenix. But building an industry that can absorb job losses from a mega employer like housing is a tall order.
Venture capital to support young companies is much, much harder to get. Grant money to support industries is harder to get. I think there's a lot more pressure for industry. And so what that means is that when industry hires someone, it's even more important that that person is well-trained.
Those well-trained biotech workers are hard to find. So in San Diego, schools and industry design training programs are trying to fill that gap, recruiting workers like Carla Trummel. Trummel worked for 10 years as a customer service representative for Delta Airlines. After grumbling through several pay cuts, she took an early buyout and enrolled in a medical lab technician training program at Miramar Community College.
I did not have a science background. I was always more of a business person. So coming into it with no knowledge of, or ever taking any biology or chemistry classes, was overwhelming at the beginning.
But so far, Trammell says, it's been totally worth it. A federal stimulus grant covers tuition and fees for Trammell and the other students in the training program. But grants like these, which have helped train thousands of San Diego workers for biotech jobs in recent years, are drying up. Given that, can biotech really be the economy's next superhero? Some boosters are very optimistic.
We have opportunities for innovation, for developing new processes, for developing new companies that will go on for a good 100 years.
And if San Diego can keep its biotech industry booming and other cities can grow their biotech, it's not just the workers in lab coats who will benefit. All kinds of support industries will need workers, including construction.
That story was part of a Frontera series, Beyond Sprawl, Rebuilding the Southwestern Economy.
You can see the other stories in the series at fronterasdesk.org. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tuesday at 10 on KPBS.
I love KPBS because when I wake up in the morning and that radio station goes on, 89.5 goes on, I know that I am going to get information that I can trust, that I can respect, that I can value, and I know I'm getting the truth.
Today marks the 70th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Tonight, KPBS's Joanne Therian gets some perspective on the day from a local Pearl Harbor survivor and a San Diego historian.
Today, we look back at the attack on Pearl Harbor, which took place 70 years ago today. The surprise attack by the Japanese dealt a major blow to the U.S. military. The number of Americans killed numbered 2,403, and 21 ships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet were sunk or damaged. Joining me to give his perspective on that day is Pearl Harbor survivor Stuart Headley. He was on board the USS West Virginia at the time of the attack. Mr. Headley is also president of the local Pearl Harbor Survivors Association, and also Dr. Iris Engstrand, a history professor at the University of San Diego. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Mr. Headley, let's begin with you. More than 100 crew members aboard the USS West Virginia were killed in the attack, but you survived. What do you remember about that morning?
Well, first of all, I was a 20-year-old brat that grew up overnight. And what I remember about that morning was I was assigned to Turret 3, which is a 16-inch gun. And the evidence is we're not going to fire those 16-inch in Pearl. But nevertheless, that's my battle station, so I manned the gun pointing job that I had.
And what was the first thing you heard?
First thing I heard was machine gun fire from the planes when I went out on top side. And it was hitting against our turret. And once we got inside the turret, Crosland and I were the only two that manned the right gun. The left gun was fully manned, and they were all killed. And two of us walked out alive. And as soon as we got into our battle station, we could feel the machine gun bullets hitting the turret, but we also felt the thud of the torpedo that hit. And Crosland says, "Stu, let's see what's going on." So we took the sight cap off our periscope, looked through it, and bam, there we're at the Arizona. That was at 7:55 that morning. I estimated about 32 bodies went flying through the air. When I joined this organization, I met one of those bodies, Jack McCarran, and stayed in my battle station until our turret took a direct hit. We didn't know that everybody was killed on the other side, because when the explosion took place, it blew a hatch off right by my feet, picking both Crosland and I up and throwing us 8 feet back in the elevating screw.
Professor, I'm sorry, I want to bring Professor Engstrand into this conversation now as well. As we hear this incredible firsthand account of what's happening, we know, too, that news is starting to travel across the country in the West Coast. What's happening now? How quickly does news get to the West Coast while this is happening or after this happens?
The general news gets there very quickly. Of course, stories like he's telling you did not reach people for quite some time, but the news traveled actually fairly fast in those days. It was over the radio. And I was just thinking, and also by telephone, those were the two means of communication. And so as soon as it would be on the radio, someone would call someone else. And I think even with the limited communication facilities they had in those days, it still traveled by I would say by noon on that Sunday, probably it had gone across the country. And of course, President Roosevelt was on the radio most of the time talking about it.
What happened in San Diego once news reached here?
Well, San Diego was actually more or less geared up for a war since it had been going on in Europe, and we had 8 military bases. We had consolidated aircraft that becomes Convair, Ryan, Solar, and so they, of course, stepped up production and advertised and sent out the word for more employees. And just in the very first months, thousands and thousands of people came to San Diego, both for military purposes and to work in the defense plants. And then when the men were drafted or went off to serve, the women took over all of the jobs beyond Rosie the Riveter. They were meter readers. They worked all over every job.
It was also a boost to our local economy at the time, wasn't it? All of this that was happening afterward.
It was probably the major factor in getting the economy out of the Depression, and within a very short time, there were jobs for everyone, and there was a housing shortage. There was shortages of everything, and then of course we went into rationing, and shortage of food, shortage of meat, shortage of sugar, shortage of coffee.
Mr. Headley, I know you're asked to speak a lot about your personal experience. What is it you want to leave people with? What is it you want them to know about this experience?
When I go out to the schools, the thing I want them to do is stay in school, get as much education as they can, keep their minds active, know what's going on around about them. And when I go out to organizations, I'm more or less giving my testimony of what I went through. Now, in most cases, when I go out to, say, the Lions Club, I'll ask them, what were you doing on December the 7th? And you know, some of them don't remember what they were doing.
You'll never forget.
Others
obviously.
will say, I was going to church that morning. But we also have had Pearl Harbor survivors that will not talk about it because of what they've gone through.
Well, we're glad that you are talking about it here today for us. We appreciate your service.
I'm free to talk.
Stuart Headley, thank you so much. Dr. Engstrom, thank you so much both for being here.
Thanks for
inviting us. You're welcome.
Us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Earlier this week, I spoke with a 99-year-old Pearl Harbor survivor, Raymond Chavez, who lives in Poway. We've posted an expanded version of that story on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition.
Tonight in our public square, the United Health Foundation has released a new report on where states rank on people's health. California ranks 24th in the country, up 2 spots from last year. But the overall ranking doesn't tell the whole story. For one, Californians are still packing on the pounds, with 7 million more obese people in the state than there were a decade ago. Diabetes and the number of children living in poverty have also increased. There is some good news, though. The state has fewer smokers, a high use of early prenatal care, and low infant mortality. But the state's challenges remain: air pollution, its uninsured, and low immunization coverage. What do you think California can do to improve the health of its citizens? How can we encourage healthier habits? Have you or your family made an effort to take better care of yourselves? You can weigh in on the conversation by following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and of course, you can email us. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.
We leave you with a look at the below normal temperatures and the forecast.